What's happening, subscriber? Welcome back to the VIP Financial Ed channel. If you're a repeat visitor, thank you so much for coming back and checking out our content. As you know, it's very important for us to put out fresh material that is relatable and actionable and important. You know, a lot of these subjects that we discuss on this channel aren't taught anywhere, so you've got to find them here. If you haven't already, I would consider subscribing. And the way that you do this correctly is you make sure you have a Gmail or YouTube account, Google account or whatever, and just make sure you select the notifications button by clicking on the bell, and that will alert you every time that we upload new, fresh material. And my very special guest, who you'll begin to recognize and see more and more frequently, is a very close dear friend of mine, Mr. Charles Roberts, one of the single most respected real estate professionals here in the Denver metro area. He is here to talk today about the most important piece to real estate investing. So you're not going to want to miss this. Make sure you stick around. All right, guys, so VIP Financial Ed, what are we doing here? Again, if this is your first time visiting the channel, we're here to help you go further, faster, financially. And we do it through discussions like this, where we're simply taking a proactive approach to how we manage our cash flow. Now, cash flow is defined by us here at VIP as the difference between all streams of income minus all of your expenses. So whatever that amount left over is what we're defining as cash flow. So some people call that disposable income or discretionary income. Cash flow is the difference between having choices and not. So when you have more money left over at the end of the month, you have more options, and ultimately that leads to a definition of freedom, right? So we're here for freedom. That's exactly right. So we want you to have the best life possible. We want you to have the most freedom possible, and cash flow can only be increased in two different ways. You're either making more money or you're spending less money. We talk about both here on this channel. So make sure you're subscribed, make sure you're sharing, make sure you're liking our videos, the ones that offer you content and things that are relatable for your circumstances. Now today, the topic is going to be related to what is the single most important aspect of real estate investing. And Charles, for those of you who don't know, has an extensive background in real estate investing. You can see some of his bio in our other videos, but ultimately he's been the owner and also a broker for the very quickly growing organization known as Your Castle Real Estate here in Denver. And after a recent acquisition, he's now the president of over 600 agents, right?
Yes.
Definitely knows what he's talking about, has every license in the book. And one of those licenses is that of being a loan officer, a mortgage professional. I too have a background in mortgages. And I think we can both agree, after sitting here deliberating on what topics are going to be most important for you, that the financing side of it stands alone. So let's talk a little bit about that with the viewer today. Well, you know, if you're just now getting into real estate, then this is going to be one of the single, I think, most frustrating aspects of real estate is dealing with that money honey. Because at the end of the day, you're not always going to get what you want out of it. And if you don't have that lined up, the rest just isn't going to matter, right?
Absolutely. So having been an investor for 20 years and working with a lot of investors, what I have found is that across the board, the thing that investors spend the least amount of time on is what you need to spend the most amount of time on, which is the financing. Everybody thinks real estate investing is about getting this great deal. And that gets old after a while, because it isn't about getting $2,000 off a property. It's actually about buying a property and doing something smart with it. So this might sound hard, but this is not a really fun topic. What I'm going to be talking about and what you're going to be talking about is the loans and what you need to do to be able to get a loan or to partner with someone and bring value enough that someone would be willing to partner with you if they're going to bring the money and if they're going to actually use their credit. But you're just really not going anywhere in real estate if you haven't thought about this. So that's what we want to start. And we both have a background as mortgage professionals. You were years ago, I was years ago. So it's something that we can deep dive into. So basically, here's what happened. During the downturn, before the downturn, getting money was relatively easy. And we saw the entire world fall apart because people could buy properties for 5% down, and then the market went down 6% and people got foreclosed on. It was probably a bad thing in the end. Right now, generally speaking, if you want to buy an investment property, you're probably putting 20% down. And while there are ways around that, and we can talk about it, the vast majority of actual investors who actually buy properties and actually build wealth put 20% down. Not what you wanted to hear, but that is the truth.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, it's a matter of being approved for the other 80%. Right? If you don't have a first loan in place in order to actually close on offers that you're making, why are you making offers? So wouldn't you agree that probably one of the single most important first steps to somebody listening who wants to get involved in real estate investing would be to find a trustworthy mortgage professional, somebody that has a long history of protecting their reputation, meaning they take care of people.
And working with investors.
I think that's a tremendous point. And we touched on this in a couple of our other classes as well, that there's a big difference between investor-specific professionals and those who work mostly with owner-occupants. So look for those investor-specific mortgage professionals. Some of the easiest ways to go about finding someone like this would be to attend some of your local real estate investment association chapters. You can easily find those chapters by doing a quick Google search or going on to meetup.com and looking for meetups in your local geographical area, and then begin attending their typically regularly monthly
kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's right. So go to their meetings. In most cases, you're going to spend very little money to attend, if anything at all. I've seen those range from $20 to $25, $30 at most per visit.
And sometimes free even.
That's right. And a lot of them will have an annual membership as well that you can get a fairly decent discount for purchasing. So I would attend maybe one or two of their meetings, decide how valuable that specific group could be to you, and then begin to pinpoint people inside the group that are going to be the professionals that you're developing into your team. And that will include one or more mortgage professionals. Once you find a mortgage professional that you know can get the deals done for you, that's somebody that you're going to be using over and over and over again. And one point that Charles mentioned that I think is worth highlighting is how important it is to a new investor to get the best deal, and yet in the meantime, not getting the best financing in order leaves a far more expensive investment over the long run anyway. And we talk about this in some of our debt-free for life trainings where, and even in our real estate investing 101 class, where we showed people how they could literally own up to 10 properties free and clear in a relatively short period of time. I mean, imagine owning 10 properties without a single loan in 10 years. Would you have to work again? Now, at the end of the day, we can show people how to reduce the price of nearly any financed home by at least 25%. Why is it that I'm out searching for a 5% undercut of price tag to value when in fact I could pay full value and still get 25% reduction of that overall cost by just simply managing the financing better than I otherwise would have? So don't take a passive approach to how you manage your money. Charles also mentioned putting 20% down. That's seemingly the direction things are going. Banks are not likely going to be loosening their guidelines before they tighten them. Would you agree with that?
I would, and there are some exceptions. 15% down, it's just more expensive money, but this is exactly what you need to do, is figure out in your market who the people you want to work with is. And I'll tell you, I was a loan officer. Even while I was a loan officer and a real estate agent, I would say to my clients, yeah, talk to me and then talk to 2 other loan officers. I want to make sure if I'm doing it that I'm the best one. You're not going to hurt my feelings. So what I'm saying is, don't just talk to one person. Actually spend the time. Actually learn something about it, because different loan officers with different companies at different programs on different days of the week might have different options for you. And it's so important for you to figure it out, because you might have this loan for, I don't know, 6, 8, 10, 20 years. Don't get this wrong.
Follow our steps, you'll have it nowhere near 20 years. But 6, yes. I will say this too, pre-qualifications are the process of actually giving your personal information to a loan professional, loan officer, or mortgage pro that is input into a standardized document known as a 1003. That 1003 loan application, when formally submitted into an generally automated underwriting program, will require your credit to be pulled. So be very, very careful about authorizing your credit to be pulled unless you're serious about starting the offer process.
So let me ask you this question. I'm actually going to ask you about that. So I get a lot where someone will come in and talk to me, and I'll say, okay, great, go talk to a loan officer, let's sit down, maybe the three of us will talk. And then I'll hear someone say, well, the loan officer will say, great, I'd like to pre-approve you, so I need to pull your credit. And then the investor will say, well, I don't want you to because you're going to hurt my credit. You're obviously the best at understanding credit. How much does one pull of a credit hurt you? I'm going to tell you from my perspective, I can't do anything if the credit isn't pulled.
Right.
You speak to that now.
If you're serious about investing in real estate, your credit's going to be pulled. If you're starting to make offers and you're looking at competing one loan officer against another as far as getting the best loan options, then there is a clause built into the algorithm that prevents every inquiry from affecting you. So there's something that allows for what's called shotgunning. You can have multiple inquiries shopping for the best mortgage or auto loans, but it's within a matter of weeks that this happens, so that window is fairly short. You can't just simply have inquiries showing up on your credit report for months at a time and have them all not impact you. But going back to your question, each inquiry will generally affect a score between 2 to 25 points. A 25 point impact to credit is usually a result of having a very shallow credit report. So somebody who has relatively good payment history but has a very limited number of accounts over that payment history, when an inquiry is added to the report, the algorithm is programmed to recognize that inquiry as unusual behavior for this individual, because if you haven't been out getting your credit pulled very often, then it's a potential sign of desperation that will then potentially have a larger impact against your scores. We talk in our other trainings and one-on-one with our members about the difference of credit scores and credit profiles. And that's something to be very familiar with as well, because while you may only have a very marginal impact to the credit scores, say 2, 5, 7 points, you also are going to have an underwriter, either a software-based underwriter or a manual person that's looking through the file, that will also be looking at what is going on in credit regardless of the score. You could have perfect credit. In fact, 9 out of 10 times, I can get somebody back into the 700s within just 12 months of discharging a bankruptcy, one of the seemingly worst things that can happen to somebody financially. So if you were to submit a file and you had a bankruptcy in your past, but your scores were great, you're still not going to get the loan. They're going to be looking more deeply beyond just the scores and see, okay, this person has a lot of different inquiries or this person has very few. It's always best to minimize the number of inquiries that you have on your credit report. But if you're going to be wanting to be buying...
Can you have one, please?
Absolutely. Okay. You can have more than one, but don't go out and frivolously incur new inquiries. If you're not ready to buy real estate, then don't necessarily have your credit pulled.
But if you are ready to buy real estate and you want a loan officer to take you seriously, they're going to pull your credit.
That's right.
So I'll sit with one of my mortgage professionals, and if someone says to us, well, I'd like to get pre-approved, but I'm not going to let you pull my credit, we're going to say, you know, thanks very much,
That's
but
right.
You're not a serious investor, and we're sort of serious people and need to move on. So don't let that happen to you.
And you know, the market will also dictate how serious you need to be a competitor. Right now, in this market, there's just not the inventory to sit back and twiddle your thumbs, because somebody who has the money, has the capability of closing, is going to come up and snatch up every single deal along the way while you're sitting there contemplating whether or not you should be avoiding an inquiry. So make sure that you're ready to take action. Someone like me, who's always going out and getting access to new capital accounts and new debt weapons, is not going to be concerned about inquiries. However, I am very strategic about the frequency with which applications are being submitted. So there's still a lot of strategy and certainly calculated decisions that are being made, but so many people I see who have 750, 800, or even better credit scores that are overly protective of their credit, and they'll fall into that trap of missing out on the power of leverage. And ultimately, that's what this is all about, is how can you leverage your way to wealth? And you can, I think it's the single most important ingredient to creating wealth. I'm not sure what your perspective is, but I do know that you're aware of the debt side of it and the dangers.
Very much so. Here's one of the subtleties that we see in a market like I'm in, which is Metro Denver. You've got to figure out your market. But in my market, let's say you want to get a property, and let's say there's 5 offers. And let's say 3 of the offers are Quicken Loans, 1 is maybe a national bank, which I probably shouldn't mention, and 1 is a well-respected local loan officer. I am telling you, if I'm the listing agent, I am very, very much taking seriously the local loan officer. It makes an enormous difference in a seller's market, which much of the country is in right now, to actually work with someone who has a good reputation. And with all due respect to Quicken and other nationals, I guess they close some deals, but I don't see it happening quickly a lot. So that's one of the things that you might not have realized, but it is worth trying to find someone who has a reputation. Let me tell you something. Quicken loan officers don't call up the listing agent and say, hey, you just got an offer from John Adams and he's great, and let me tell you why. But my loan officer does, and I get deals done sometimes literally because of that phone call. This is something you don't learn in books, but boy, do you learn this when you're actually out doing this. And my guess is your market is no different.
So you've got to get your finances in order, folks. And again, 20% down. If you don't have the money, let's start talking about how we can get access to the money so that you can put even less out of your own pocket by using these really cool tools that we teach about on this channel known as Debt Weapons. If you haven't yet already, make sure you reserve your 1 exclusive free coaching session. It's in the description below. You can click on that link and reserve. Some of these sessions are falling on my calendar lately, so with any luck, we'll be having that conversation together, and I look forward to it. Also, Mr. Charles Roberts has been generous enough to help anyone that's interested in breaking into the Denver real estate investor community. He would be happy to help answer additional questions for you and even show you some of the possible purchases that you could be making. Guys, even though it's a market that it's great to be a seller on the other side of the table right now, it's still a fantastic time to be a buyer. It just doesn't seem to be slowing down. And I think for years and years and years to come, no matter what happens in the short term, Denver is a very hot place to add to your portfolio. So make sure that you reach out to us. There will be an email in the description below as well, known as contactus@vipfinancialeducation.com. And we will connect you directly with Charles. We'll pass along that warm introduction for you.
And something else that I can help with, if you're not in the Denver market, is I have colleagues all around the country, and I know who to call and how to open up some introductions. So let's say you're in, Dayton, or you're in California, you're in LA, looking to do the type of things that Matt and I are talking about. Give me a call. Let me actually try to understand what you're doing, and let me see if I can make a few phone calls and maybe find somebody on the real estate side that maybe can help you, who understands the types of things that we do. And it's much, much better to work with someone who's been doing real estate investing. You want to work with someone who's actually an investor themselves and can talk this type of talk and understand the lingo. And I'd be happy to make a couple of calls if I can help out.
Guys, that is tremendous. Believe me, once you get connected with him and you start to see exactly just how much of a leader he is in our community here, you will absolutely appreciate that and want to dive in. So looking forward to speaking with you ourselves. Charles, thank you so much as always for being here. Guys, we're going to be coming out with tons of fresh content. So subscribe to the channel and we'll see you on the next video. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks.
Take care.